The Daleks are invading New Eden, and it's up to all of us together to stop these interlopers in the interstellar convergence and send them back from whence they came. If you're new here, welcome in. I am Interdimensional, and I am your exploration expert in New Eden, your resource for all of the latest news in EVE Online. And today we're going to be talking about the new event, the Interstellar Convergence. I do also want to let you know that there will be a giveaway during this video. You can find out more details further into the video. And of course, if you do get value out of this content, make sure that you hit that like button, the subscribe button. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into it. So we will be talking about this event here in three major parts today. First is going to be the overview of the event, all of the miscellaneous stuff that you want to know about it. And then second part, we're going to be talking about the exploration side of the event. And then lastly, we'll talk about the combat side and what you can expect to see there. And of course, if you're looking to get to a specific part of the video, there are chapters down below in the timeline, so feel free to go ahead and skip ahead to whatever you're looking for. So, what is this event? Well, the short of it seems to be that the Daleks have done something in their universe, and it has poked a hole into New Eden. So we as Capsuleers need to investigate through exploration, find out what's going on, craft some filaments, and then get in there and destroy the Dalek menace. The event will be going until February 1st and is geared towards new players. And let's talk about what you can expect to see in the event. To start off, let's talk about the daily reward trackers. So this is pretty standard to what we see in all of our events these days. There is an alpha track, an omega track. Altogether, it looks like you're going to be getting 125,000 skill points for your character, which is a decent amount, nothing to laugh at. And then you'll also be getting a variety of these boosters, the air variety boosters this time, and we'll go over what those exactly are here in a moment. And then you will also be getting a few skins. So for the alpha track, it looks like you're going to be getting the Blue Force skin for the T1 exploration ships. And then the omega side, you get the T2 Covop ships. Moving right along, let's go ahead and talk about the event tracker. So it looks like this time we are mainly focusing on exploration and combat stuff, but there are some new, better quality of life, we'll call them, tasks to do. So it's going to be scanning down sites, hacking cans, and then doing damage to the saucers. So previously we saw that you needed to kill the final big boss enemy in order to get credit for your event, but it looks like they've kind of fixed that, remedied this, and so now you only are going to need to do damage specifically. So even if you're doing it in a group, it's still going to be super good and fine and dandy. They haven't fixed the issue where you still do need to click every time that you complete a task, but they did put a little bit more extra consideration, and now all of these tasks are not immediately following each other. So for example, in previous events, you would have a task to kill 5 cruisers, and then the next task would be to kill the boss, for instance. But if you forgot to click it, then you would basically waste an entire site worth of event credit, but it looks like they have remedied it this time. So definitely props to CCP there. Now all we need to do is have an auto-clicking button. So let's go ahead and talk about what you can expect to get in this event. So I think primarily the main thing that you're looking for is the Doctor Who trinkets. So you can get things like the blue box or the diary, snow globe. None of it is explicitly called out for like what its Doctor Who reference is, but that's just to kind of keep a little bit lore alive in New Eden. But if you're a fan of Doctor Who, or even if you know just a little bit of what's going on, you should still get a kick out of these trinkets. You can also, in the sites, get these peculiar data collections, and this seems to be the purely NPC sell order stuff. And it also seems that you will be able to sell this stuff to basically any NPC station. So it's very easy to just grab it and then sell it at your nearest station. That way you don't have to get confused about where you could sell stuff. Again, new player focused, and they're just making it very easy, very accessible. None of this going specifically to a Concord station, or heaven forbid, a Blood Raider NPC delve station. You'll also be getting the blueprint copies and the materials, special materials, to make these filaments for the event. So I think this is probably the coolest thing about the event, is that it kind of progresses in a way similar to the Abyss, where you're going to start out and go exploring to get the initial filament and blueprint copy, or someone else can do that for you. if you're combat focused. And then you are going to craft this filament, go into the next level, get more blueprint copies for higher levels, as well as the materials to make it. And you're going to kind of progress up the tree of the different sites. So it's a new thing that we haven't seen before in events, and I think it's pretty awesome. So the boosters you can get in this event are an air variety, and it is kind of split into two different categories. One is exploration helpful stuff, and then the other is combat helpful stuff, and it's generically combat helpful stuff, which is definitely nice. In previous events, we saw things like only lasers get bonus or only projectiles get bonus, but here you can see that it has ship inertia as well as ship signature radius, and that's going to be helpful across the board. Exploration side of the drugs, all of these drugs are pretty good. There are a few weird ones like the range bonus on your analyzer. Still not exactly sure how that's going to be helpful, but I do know that the strength booster is going to be super helpful. And a little personal note of pride here is that they initially said that it was going to be +2, +4, and +6, but I was like, hey, CCP, that's not very good. You should have it 4, 6, and 8. And lo and behold, that's how it is. No confirmation that I personally was the one to get this change to happen, but I'm going to believe it anyways. And then lastly, there are the standard event cerebral accelerators that we come to know and love. You have your basic, your extended, and your potence. So make sure you keep an eye out for those and start chugging them as soon as you can. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the exploration sites inside of this event. I'm going to go ahead and be running one of the exploration sites in the background while I talk about it and get you all the information that you need. To start off, they are very similar to Abyssals, if you're familiar with those, in that they have a 30-minute timer instead of a 20-minute, but you can leave whenever. So in the center of the site, there is a portal. You are free to take that portal whenever you want. However, if you don't take the portal and the timer runs out, you will lose your ship and your pod and be ported back to your home station, probably pretty sad. Also, like the Abyssals, there is a boundary at about 80 kilometers away from that center portal. But the difference here is that instead of taking damage, if you go through that boundary, you will instead be teleported to the other side of that bubble. And I personally think this is really cool and fun and definitely opens up a lot of neat pathing options. The cans in the site do not explode, so feel free to hack them as many times as you would like. You can just brute force your way through, which in the lower levels isn't particularly needed because they are pretty easy cans to hack. But once we get further along into the higher levels, such as you're seeing here, it is possibly a good idea to just try and brute force your way. There are also, instead of the clouds like you're familiar with in Abyssals, there are these accelerant and decelerant nexuses, which show up kind of as wormhole icons on your overview. And what they do is basically give you a positive or negative tie-dye experience. So if you go through the accelerant cloud, your ship moves faster, your modules activate faster, you have faster cap regen, everything just goes faster. And then vice versa for the decelerant evil nexuses. The cans are also, however, very far apart. So again, this is a 80-kilometer radius bubble, and the cans are scattered all the way throughout. So things like micro warp drives and agility, speed, going fast is definitely going to help you out here. And let's go ahead and talk about the levels of the site. So there are 3+1 levels. So what I mean by that is that there is kind of a level 0 exploration site. It is found in K-Space. We're not going to really cover that too much here because you should only really need to do that one a few times before you can move on into these level 1 through 3 sites and then start getting your filaments and your crafting materials from there. So the first site is going to be called a curious site. It's got 9 cans in it, and they are going to be a variety of green and yellow hacks. So quite easy to do. Basically anyone in any ship, day 1 or otherwise, should be able to do basically all of these hacks within the 30-minute time frame, and it is definitely geared towards new players. After that, you have the level 2 site. That's going to be called the enigmatic site. There are 13 cans in this one. and they are a mix of yellow and red difficulty hacking cans. So this is going to be where it starts to test maybe some people. Again, you have 30 minutes to do 13 cans, which are far away, and they are yellow and red hacks. So as long as you are a decently competent explorer, you should be able to fully complete the site. But if you are very new to the activity, this one might be a little bit difficult for you. However, it is great practice, so I still probably do recommend sticking primarily with the level 2 sites and really grinding your teeth on them. Lastly, there is the level 3 site, the mysterious sites. So these ones are quite a doozy, and I personally love them. There are 17 cans in this site, and this is the site that you're seeing us run right now. And they are a variety of yellow, red, and what we call red plus or double black diamond. And so in order for most people to complete this site, you're going to be needing to be a very good hacker and / or utilize cherry picking, cargo scanning, things of that nature. Speaking of cherry picking, it is, in my opinion, highly encouraged with this activity, especially because no one else is going to get, screwed. You're not going to hurt your fellow explorers, as the anti-cherry pickers say. So another pro tip for you is that if you fleet up with yourself, you can use the tagging system. So you can see that you can put little letters or numbers on cans that you either do or don't want to take. And then you can just kind of go around and figure out what you want, get what you want, spend however long you need to in the site, as long as it's not over 30 minutes, and hopefully get a lot of good loot here. I am very excited for this. Hopefully, even if it doesn't pay out, I think it's such a great activity that I'm going to personally very much enjoy it. And lastly, let's go ahead and talk about some ship suggestions. So to start off, there is a restriction on the ships that you can use in this site. And that's going to be the T1 exploration ships, the T2 covert ops ships, and then the Astero as a special exception, because it is technically a pirate frigate, but it still gets allowed in here. Any of these will do perfectly just fine, but you want to go for things that are fast, cap stable, and good at hacking. So the best ones, in my opinion, are going to be things like the Astero or Cheetah. However, anything's perfectly fine, and I am going to be going for looks over everything. So I'm going to be using my Anathema, as you see here, because I have a Gaunet skin for it. And we're not going to be cloaked a lot, so I can finally enjoy my skin. But also, if you are a alpha character or a new explorer, a Heron is going to be a awesome ship as well. And that is more or less the hacking sites. And with that, let's go ahead and move right along. So let's talk giveaways. I am an EVE partner because I create only the finest content in New Eden, and as such, CCP gives me a handful of scope syndication skins to give out to you guys. And so all you got to do in order to have your chance at winning one of those is answer the comment question of the day, which is, how long have you been playing EVE? And on a rating of 1 to 10, how healthy or good do you think the game is currently? Also, please do leave your in-game name in that comment. It makes it much easier to get that skin off to you. Also, if you are getting value out of this content, which I think you are because you've made it this far, then please do hit that like and sub button to keep propelling us forward onto new heights. Okay, so much like the exploration site, I'm going to go ahead and run in the background one of the combat sites while we talk about it. So let's dive right in. Let's go ahead and talk about everyone's favorite enemy, the Daleks. So these guys are going to be spawning in waves, kind of the main enemy that you're fighting in these sites. They are fast, have great tracking, and like to be at around 7, maybe 15 kilometers range. And they're also cruiser-sized, despite their icons showing smaller. Next up is the saucers. So these are kind of the bosses, the big bads of these sites. They can be fast. They can basically go whatever speed they want to. A little bit of strange pathing there sometimes. They do have good tracking with their weapons, which is going to be a slow but strong weapon, so do expect to be taking a bit of spike damage every now and then. They also have a strong grappler that goes out to about 30 kilometers. So anything closer than 30 kilometers, you are going to start to slow down. And if you get very close to them, you can be slowed for, I believe, 80% of your ship's speed, and have a very hard time escaping from it after that. So do be very careful when getting close to the saucer. That said, you can orbit him at about 30 kilometers, and this is kind of the range that I generally suggest engaging the saucer. Another trick up the saucer sleeve is that he does launch newt bombs fairly regularly, and while these bombs are slow and pretty easy to kite, if you do get caught in his grappler or you happen to run into them for some reason, they are quite a heavy newt, and so your capacitor is going to be hurting in that case. As for how you should be shooting him, based on his general speed and size, he is about a fat battle cruiser or a very nano tiny battleship. And then lastly, he is the one that has the loot. He is the goal of the site. So all you have to do is kill them and loot their wreck and then take the portal out. You don't really have to worry about anything. Everything else is just kill in order to not die. Speaking of other enemies, let's go ahead and talk about the last one in the sites, the turrets. So these guys have an initial spawn and then don't spawn ever after that. They are stationary. They are turrets after all. And I don't find that they do a whole lot of damage, especially if you're going fast, sig tanking using an afterburner. But in the level 4 sites, which we'll get to in a little bit about the levels, there are a whole lot of them, and that can add up, so it might be worth your time to at least take out a few of them given the opportunity. So speaking about levels, let's go ahead and talk about them now. There are 4 levels in the combat side of this event. The first level is called Precarious, and anyone can basically do this. A day 1 completely new character who hasn't even done the career mission agents should pretty much be able to take this on no problem. After that, you have your level 2 site, which is going to be kind of your solo new bro difficulty. It's called Hazardous, and you should be able to basically take this regardless of how old or skillful your character or you are. Also to note is that these sites don't pod you in any of the difficulty levels. So even if you do lose your ship, you shouldn't lose your pod. You should be able to just slow boat to the exit portal and try again after that. After level 2, you move on up to the level 3 dangerous sites, and this is where it gets pretty interesting. So the difficulty does kind of start to ramp up. A solo experienced pilot should still be able to handle it pretty fine. However, if you are a new character, this is where you're going to want to start duoing the sites or risk getting overwhelmed a little bit too quickly. And then lastly, the level 4 sites, the perilous sites. These things are absolute monsters, and I love it. So you're going to need a duo of experienced pilots, whether that means that you are multi-boxing your 2 accounts or actually playing with a friend. That's up to you. But I also do highly recommend having a good pod set, as well as using drugs, and maybe even throwing in a few abyssal modules here and there. Again, because the sites are limited to these very specific cruisers, you can't solve all problems with better T2 or T3 ships like we usually do. So speaking of ships, these sites do only allow a very specific set of T1 cruisers in them. That is going to be the Omen, Caracal, Thorax, Stabber, Mauler, Moa, Vexer, and Rupture, aka all of the damaging T1 cruisers. Out of these ships, I personally find the Caracal to be a great choice. I prefer heavy missiles in this scenario, but rapid lights may also be a good choice, especially if you are tiered into Tech 2 for one over the other. Another great ship is the Vexer, and then I would definitely be using Caldari or maybe Galente drones, just because they are a little bit extra tanked. You do get a bit of drone hate in these sites, so try and keep those guys a little bit more secure. And then as for duo possible fits, you could go with some remote repair Vexers or remote cap transfer Vexers, as well as possibly a blaster Moa / Thorax, and then a regular ship for kind of a duo support. One guy to take out the saucer really quickly, just get in there and go ham, and then the other guy to take out all of the Daleks and possibly turrets and keep the overall damage in the site down. All that said, I do recommend checking out Eventon for his video where he should be going over some more day one new bro fits in specific details. And so that's basically everything about this event. I hope you have fun with it. I know I will. Speaking of, I will be live streaming with CCP Paragon this Friday at around 1800 Eve time, so keep an eye out for that. And then I've also made a mailing list specifically for this event. It's called Whovian Help. And if you want to find out about that and more details, check out this video where I show you how to go from a new account to event ready. Fly safe and enjoy.